Oh. Now it feels frozen. Now that like I know that
it does. I just had a thing pop up and it was like, your computer is virus free. I'm like, please don't be doing that right now. No,
yeah.
This is not. We did all the updates yesterday for this reason.
It's just letting you know it's okay.
It's like everything's good.
Welcome, everyone. We're just going to give folks a minute to come in and then we'll get started. Is my little AC unit behind me too buzzy and annoying? Can y'all hear it?
I can't hear it at
I don't
all.
hear it anymore now. Yeah.
Turn the dehumidifier off. That's the noisier one. Like all my various climate control devices. Speaking of weather. So you're in Western Michigan, Erin? Is that what
Yeah. Yeah, we're like, well, my parents live here. We're like here. Wait, there. I'm going backwards.
How close are you to Schuller's, just in relation to my friend, since I know nothing?
Like on a good traffic day, like 24 minutes. We go, there's like, and it depends on traffic and which way we go, but about 20, 25 minutes. But we were there yesterday and I love that store. It's so good. We were there Saturday and my husband was watching my daughter for most of the signing and everything. And then she came and played with me while I was doing some signing stuff. And so he got to like look around at all the books and he had like 2 bags full of books. And I was like quickly like jaunting through the YA section. I was like, oh, I'll get these 3. And then my parents came out to help with the signing yesterday and they were watching Grace. And so they were like off in the kids section. I'm like, I'm just going to like pretend I'm working and like really go look at books and everything. And this huge second, were you here on Saturday? I'm like, I didn't see any of these. There was a giant used section I had to look through. But yeah, that's been the most dangerous part of launch week is all the bookstores I go to and I keep finding stuff and I'm like, well, it would be rude if I didn't buy anything. So like, obviously I need this stack of 7 books that I'm clearly have space for.
Everyone who complains about that at Novel as a customer, we have to assure them that it's just the same for employees. We buy way too
Yes.
I find that with like live events too, like when we used to be able to go into the store, like that was dangerous because it was like while we were up there talking, I was like writing down like, okay, yeah, okay, I'm gonna write that. And then immediately following it, I'm like fighting over like the people who are attending, like, wait, I'm gonna get that book. I'm gonna get that book.
Can you grab that?
Yeah. While it's fresh in my brain, I want to get this book. So then, yeah, I would leave everyone with the stack. And my husband was always like, "Do you make money at these things, or do you think it probably is a wash?" I'm like, "It's probably a wash because I just love reading." So
I did the math on Saturday, and I think Paul did buy most of them, but I think we made like $20 at the end of the day after. And he's like, "Wait, how many books did you send?" I was like, "Almost 200." He's like, "So made about 20 bucks." I'm like, "Good job."
yeah.
But we've got reading material, which is so much more valuable.
What other reason do you make money writing books than to buy more books by other people?
Exactly. I got a coffee mug. I think it was at Square Book, off the Square Books in Oxford, and it says "We'll work for books," and I was like, "Oh, that's appropriate."
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for the latest installment of Novel at Home. My name is Kat Leach, and I'm on the marketing and events team here at Novel. I'm in my at my home, so we're not here at Novel at the moment, but you get the idea. We really appreciate y'all being here this afternoon. Today, we're thrilled to celebrate the release of Small Favors, Erin Craig's follow-up to her best-selling debut, House of Salt and Sorrows. In Small Favors, Erin once again mines the realm of fairy tales to weave a tale described by one reviewer as, quote, folk horror that feels like a classic but is utterly fresh. Erin will be discussing Small Favors with fellow YA author Erin Hahn. His upcoming novel, Never Saw You Coming, will be released on September 7th. Both Small Favors and Never Saw You Coming and both authors' backlist titles can be ordered from novelmemphis.com. A little housekeeping before we get started. After I introduce the Erins, I'll hide my own video during their conversation. But I'll be with y'all in the chat where I'll post links to order both Erin's books. Toward the end of the program, there'll be an audience Q&A. Please use the Q&A box at any point during the program to ask questions of our guests, and they'll get to as many as they can. Now, without further delay, let me introduce our featured guests. Erin Hahn is the author of You'd Be Mine, More Than Maybe, and Never Saw You Coming. She married her very own YA love interest, who she met on her first day of college, and has 2 kids who are much, much cooler than she ever was at their age, her words. She lives in Ann Arbor, Michigan, AKA the greenest place on earth, and has a cat named Gus who plays fetch and a dog named June who doesn't. Our star today, our star Erin, is New York Times best-selling author of House of Salt and Sorrows and Small Favors, Erin Craig. When her debut was released in 2019, Erin was living in Memphis, and we had an amazing launch party for her at our store. Now that she's moved home to Michigan, we can't help but call her one of our own still, and wish we could have hosted a big store to do for her for Small Favors. After getting her BFA from the University of Michigan in theater design and production, Erin stage managed tragic operas with hunchbacks, seances, and murderous clowns, then decided she wanted to write books that were just as spooky. An avid reader, decent embroiderer, again her words, rabid basketball fan, and collector of typewriters, Erin makes her home in West Michigan with her husband and daughter. Please join me in giving our Michigan Erins a warm virtual welcome.
Hello.
Yay.
Hello. Thank you guys for coming, and for Novel for hosting us. It's so nice to be like in theory and virtually back in Memphis. I can't wait till we get to do it again in person for real. And hello, Erin. It's so good to have you come play with me today. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thanks for inviting me. This is super fun. And when you go to Memphis, I'm coming with you. That's just, I'm gonna like jump in
Yes,
on the
please.
way, and then we'll just both come. Okay, so I think Erin is freezing for a second, or maybe I am.
Sorry. Funny. It's better.
You there,
So
Erin?
I'm thinking we could do a little books first, if you do that.
Oh, hold on a second, Erin. Try again. Now do it.
Sorry. Okay. Sorry. Is it better?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Good. Sorry about that. I was thinking we could maybe go through and like introduce our books really quickly, because I'm so excited to hear yours in your own words, and I'm so excited for yours coming out this fall.
Oh yeah, we can do that. Do you want to go first? Or do you want me to?
You go first.
Okay. So I write YA romance right now, and I have 2 books that are currently out. You'd Be Mine, which is a country music romance that's kind of inspired by Johnny and June Cash. And then I have a like a music nerd romance that talks about a song that went viral, and it kind of brought this couple together so they could save a dive bar in Ann Arbor, Michigan. And that one was called More Than Maybe. That came out last year in the middle of the pandemic. And then this year, in about 6 weeks, I have my 3rd YA romance that's a spinoff of my 2nd one, and it's called Never Saw You Coming. And it is, I call it like my church kid YA romance, but it's basically about one of the characters in More Than Maybe. She finds out that her parents aren't who she really thought they were, and that her dad isn't really her dad. And so she goes to the UP, or the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and she goes to find out her dad's real family. He's gone, but she gets to meet the family, and in that process she falls in love with Micah, and he's a former pastor's son who is now in prison, and so there's a lot of angst and everything that brings them together. But it's a very sweet, very cute romance, if I do say so myself. They are definitely my most delightful couple that I've ever written, so I'm super excited for it to be out and in the world. Yeah.
Same. I truly, like, I'm not being hyperbolic. That was my absolutely favorite read of last year. Like, I got to do an early read of it, and everybody, please go pre-order it, because like my heart was just so happy reading it. It was wonderful and lovely, and I loved getting to see Veda and everyone from More Than Maybe, and like. And then like the little tidbits of things from you, do you mind? I love that you write all your books in the same universe. Like, that just makes me abundantly happy every time I see the little Easter eggs for everything.
Yeah.
So I wrote House of Salt and Sorrows, which is a Gothic retelling of the 12 Dancing Princesses. And then Small Favors is a YA kind of prairie Gothic take on Rumpelstiltskin. It's a kind of M. Night Shyamalan's The Village meets Stephen King's Needful Things, with like some bees and awful things in the woods and all of that thrown in for good measure. And apparently scared Erin terribly.
Yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're here to talk about, is how dare you scare me with all of your books. Like, Erin and I are good friends, and I love her so much, but she's the only scary book author that I will read. Like, because I love her, I'll read them, but always afterwards, I'm like, how dare you? Every single time. I will not sleep for a week. Thank you very much.
Such a lot. I saw somebody had posted they started reading the book last night, and she read far longer than she meant to, and it was nighttime, and then they had a thunderstorm, and it like woke her up in the middle of the night, and she like went to go look out the window because she'd forgotten to close the blinds, and because of like some charging device or something in the room, she saw like 2 silver lights being reflected on the window screen, but she thought it was the silver eyes of the book. And I was like, oh, you got the Monster Expansion Pack special edition. You're so lucky.
I'm not
so
kidding.
good.
Like, I told Erin as soon as I finished reading it, I was like, after House of Salt and Sorrows, I've been very open about the fact that I've probably not taken a bath since then. I'm pretty sure. Like, obviously I shower, but like, I have not taken a bath since then, for sure. And then after this one, I was like, okay, so what am I not going to be able to do? And you were like, ha ha ha. And I cannot look. I have like a big yard, like 5 acres in Michigan. That's just like country. And I can't look out my window at night, like at all.
Oh.
All the curtains are drawn. I'm completely freaked out because if I see like, anyway, I don't want to like spoil anything, but yeah, for sure. So now I'm like, every book she sends me, I'm like, okay, so what is my new like fear going to be? It's just keep adding to the list.
The one I'm writing right now, which I can't talk about much of, but I was literally writing a scene. I'm like, oh, Erin's gonna cry. This is gonna be so good. It's like it's my big to-do list when I go to plot a book. It's like, how can I make Erin Hahn scared?
Yeah, and it works every single time. Time.
Always good to know.
I want to ask a few questions before we open it up. So everyone knows, again, that we have the Q&A, so you guys can put your questions. I'm like pointing to it on my computer. You can't see that, but I've got them up. So if you guys have any questions for either Erin or I, or just like in general, I will start asking those too. But I brought a couple of them to get us started. So I'm going to give them to Erin now, and you guys can let me know what you think. So my first one is, so what is your process for writing horror? Because we've talked about a little bit, like, obviously what has inspired some of these stories, and we can go through that a little bit more in detail in a minute. But when, I know when I write like a contemporary romance, I kind of have to get into the mood with like some meet cutes and things like that are, current movies. Like what makes you think of like, I'm going to write this is super scary. Like, how do you get in that mindset?
A lot of it depends on the story itself and like kind of like where I am in life. With House of Salt and Sorrows, I had started writing it. I had just shelved like the first book I ever wrote. And that one took me about 10 years to do. And I was like, okay, well, obviously I need to figure out a better way to do this, because 10 years for one book is not very, self-sustaining. And so I had just had my daughter. I was on maternity leave from Opera Memphis. And I was like, okay, well, this is fun. I'm not like working and she sleeps a lot. So like, what do I do with my time? Because I don't really nap during the day, like ever. So I started thinking up some new story. And I had gotten the idea to do an Annabelle Lee retelling of the Edgar Allan Poe poem. And it didn't entirely, I tried a couple different versions and it didn't really work. And then I started thinking, I was like, oh, I could like mix a fairy tale into it and get like the really pretty, gorgeous, gory, awful murder mystery that it became. And so for that one, like I had a lot of like Pinterest stuff, and everyone always asks me like what my playlist was while I was writing that. And that was the only book I've ever written completely in silence, because I was writing it with a newborn. And so I didn't want to wake up the newborn. So I wrote a lot of it on my phone in a very dark nursery. And that was kind of like the basis for most of my creepiness. I was sitting in a dark nursery with like the glow of my phone, you know, like writing it out with my thumb and trying not to wake the baby. And so like a lot of it was just me being creeped out sitting in a dark room. There was a scene in it. It's where Annalee is, she thinks she's chasing her sister Verity through like the art gallery thing, and she's being hidden, and there's all these moths coming everywhere. And then her sister, who is dead, Eulalie, from the beginning of the book, that's no spoiler, but she decides to come and pay a little visit to Annalee. And I finished writing the scene and I was so freaked out. And I put my phone down and I saw this pair of eyes across the room like staring at me. And I was like, oh my gosh, what did I write? I wrote something into existence. This is exactly what Stephen King was talking about. Like, oh my gosh, what is that? And then I realized it was Cookie Monster. And he was like glaring at me in the light of the cell phone. And so that like inspired a ton of things to come. And then for Small Favors, it was such a different feel. I had a playlist, I had my Pinterest boards, and I wrote most of it like where I'm sitting right now, like in my chair in a nice bright room. So it's definitely got a different feel. I think there's definitely obviously scary things, but it was such a different writing process. Having a toddler, you know, running around instead of writing in a dark nursery. And I think a lot of the horror elements come in. That's a subject I've always been fascinated by, like mysterious things that go bump in the night. And I was always like checking out scary stories to tell in the dark and like trying to get Stephen King books, you know, past my mom at the library and stuff. And so I think it just naturally flowed into everything that I wrote. So it's never like a conscious decision, like, oh, we're going to make this book scary. It's just what comes out of me. But this my current work in progress, like I've had to go back and like it's very gothic, but there's a lot of like science in it, and so I'm having to do a lot of research on like science things and like biology, and like I really wish I had my old AP bio textbook because I've forgotten a lot of stuff since then. And so like that one has been the horrors are all very like based in science. And so there's a lot of research that goes into it. And like science is so scary, like on its own in general to me, that there's all these like very real reasons why these like things that are totally magical exist, is terrifying. And so I think that was helpful. A lot of the things, like all these things I just wrote about, they're true. Isn't that great? So yeah, it depends book to book what inspires everything. But yeah.
I will say when I was reading Small Favors, for those of you who are watching this, I'm a big music person, obviously. We've kind of touched on that. And so I had asked Erin for her playlist so I could like listen to it. Or did I ask her or do you offer it? One of the two, but you ended up sending it to me, like the Spotify playlist to listen to. And so I had like my soundproof headphones and like playing this playlist as I read. And I had to like every chapter, like close the book and just sit there, because I was just like, this is absolutely the best way to read this book, but also so much scarier, because it really like, you know, it's easy when you're reading a book and then you look up in your sunny room and you're like, it's not real. It's not like that. But like when you really immerse yourself in all of your senses in like kind of an eerie, spooky, you know, world, then it definitely hits harder. So if that's like advice for anybody at home when you're reading it, like definitely get some like spooky songs while you're doing it, because, and I don't know, do you have those playlists for people to listen to, or maybe you could even just like point them into like a soundtrack or something that you like?
I don't know if my Spotify is open. It might be. But the soundtracks, it's like all different movie soundtracks. The Village is the first one, because that's the thing that always kind of got me into the mood. And then like Last of the Mohicans. I think we've got some of like The Haunting of Bly Manor, or no, Haunting of Hill House, because Bly Manor's my other one. I always have different playlists now that Tiny Craig is can listen to music and not be sleeping. I have different ones for each book, and it's like the second I hear that first song, it's kind of like muscle memory. It's like, oh, okay, it's time to write now, so we're gonna write now. Right. So yeah, Hill House was Small Favors. Bly Manor is the next one. But it's a lot of like, I can't listen to lyrics when I'm writing, because then I start like writing whatever I'm listening to. Some Taylor Swift verses might have gotten mixed in the first time I tried to do that. But yeah, it's any like big epic instrumental stuff, like it pairs well with Small Favors.
Yeah, I highly recommend. It was awesome. Okay, so you kind of already said this one. I was going to ask you, like, have you ever gotten scared while writing? And now I'm just going to think of like the Cookie Monster eyes that, have definitely freaked you out.
They're terrifying. And the thing is, it was my doll, like from when I was a child, then we like saved it and now it's her doll. And so like betrayal by my best friend.
Yeah, right. Yeah, definitely. And so like, do you find now that you write these kinds of stories, can you read them and not get as scared? Like if you're reading it because you kind of like are in that mindset of like an author of scary stories. So like, do you think of it that way, like kind of formulaic, or no, is it still just as scary?
It depends on the author, because some ones I start reading and I won't name names, but like there's some and I'm like, I see where you're going with all of this, and I don't want to, I'm not following you down this hole. But then there's other ones where I have no idea, and like it's such a fun way. Like what was the last one? Kate Marshall's Rules for Vanishing. I was terrified. I literally had nightmares reading this book, in like the very best way. And I had no idea where she was going with it. It's contemporary horror, and it's got like found footage type things. So there's like, you're reading some transcripts of stuff. You're reading like, or like descriptions of, like the security cameras caught this person running past or whatever. And it was such a different way to tell a horror story. I absolutely loved it. And then you go into this very weird, it's kind of a portal fantasy, on top of all of the mystery, like contemporary stuff. And it was just so well done. And I read it, and then I had to go back and reread it to see like from a craft perspective how she pulled it off, because it was just like, this is brilliant. Like it's just so good. So like when a book can suck me into it that way, it's always like it ends up on one of these shelves someplace, because there's like, that's such magic. Like, yay. But yeah, it's hard, and like trying to get like in the, I don't read usually scary stuff, or like I won't read that type of scary stuff while I'm writing. So like when I was working on Small Favors, there was all these like prairie gothic horror stuff that kept piling up, and I was like, I'm dying to read you, but I don't want to get polluted while I'm writing myself. So now I'm trying to like catch up on all of like the creepy things. And then I was drafting my next one, and so I was like, oh, I can't read gothic anymore, sad. And so now we've been doing all my launch stuff. I've got my last round of revisions turning in, and so like as I've been going around signing in stores and stuff, I'm like, oh, I'm buying you. So somewhere over there's a gigantic stack of gothic goodness to come.
Just saving it for when you're finally able to like open them up and just like devour them all.
Absolutely. Are you the same way? Like with when you're writing, are you able to like watch things within the world that you go for it?
No, I can't. I mean, I'm the same way. And the hard part is, I think because I write contemporary, I don't watch TV like at all, because it's everything is similar. And I have tweens at home, so they like to watch kind of YA type shows. And so no, I can't. I have to like completely avoid everything. So right now I'm drafting my 4th YA, and because of that, I'm only reading like historical romance. Like I have to like completely go into a different genre. So I'll keep reading all the way through, but I definitely can't read anything similar. And so that's what it will be. The same thing. Like I just save up. I have got my big stack, and then at the end of drafting, I'm like, this is my reward, as I can read these.
Yes, I love the pre-reward, what was that? Kirsten White, I think she tweeted once about how she'll buy things as pre-rewards to give herself later. And I was like, oh, I've never felt so seen before. Like I absolutely do that. Yes. Yeah. It's like, it's a pre-treat and then the anticipation.
Right. And you're like still supporting other authors and you're really excited. And then, but it's like a treat for you. I mean, that's what I was just actually like talking this morning. I tweeted this morning that like this, you know, the conundrum of like, I'm such a reader and I know you are too. And then also I'm an author. And so I was saying like, I just finished reading a great book and it was, I like wrote it down because I told you I was gonna, The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by Andrew Hilton. Oh, it is like wicked and funny and wonderful historical romance. Everybody needs to get it. But I finished reading it and I went to go look because it's a series and I saw her next one comes out in March. So everybody, first one's out now, second one's out in March. And I look at it and I'm like, okay, pre-order. And then I'm also like, also, that's, you know, so and so months after mine or before my release. And you kind of have like this conundrum of like, okay, I'm so excited about their book coming out. And also, am I more excited about their book or my book? Because it's like you're, you know, you have like two different halves of your personality now, you know, but I think we're all readers first in a way. I mean, we're all just like super big book fans. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So it's our treat. Like I'll write this book, I guess, but I'm really excited about my reward afterwards. And then I hope.
And then I don't have to write anything. I can just read and it's going to be so good. I had somebody ask me about like what my, what's the least favorite part of writing. And I was like, whatever part I'm currently on is my least favorite. I'm always looking forward to the next stuff. And I love being a writer. I love my job, but yeah, it's always whatever part of the process I'm on right now is the least favorite. It's like when I'm drafting, I want to be editing. When I'm editing, oh gosh, that's shiny plot idea that I forgot I had. And then now I have to write down right now.
Yeah, absolutely. That like you always love the grass is greener in every other stage of production. Actually, I don't think I ever really loved like the marketing part of it. Somebody could do that part for me because you feel like I can market your books, everybody else's books all day long, but when it comes to your own, you're just like, it's a whole nother job. So what we talked about, and I wanted you to kind of go through these a little slower because you went through them pretty quick in the beginning. And this is like my favorite thing about when you write books, you do a lot of retellings or you kind of mix in like different stories. You talked about Annabelle Lee, you had talked about the 12 Dancing Princesses. I think I said that right. So what inspires the two that you have out? And then also I want to know what's inspiring the one that you're working on now.
All right. So with Annabelle Lee and the 12 Dancing Princesses, I just always loved that poem. And I kept thinking my very first book that I wrote that I shelved, it was a Peter Pan retelling and it was just straight on Peter Pan. Like I didn't try to smush anything. Was Wendy's granddaughter was going back off to Neverland and there was like lots of monster things because it's still me. And then I was like, well, like I tried pouring that for 9 months, I want to say. I got about 130 rejections on it, whatever that equates to time period was. And I realized I was like, maybe I don't want to do like a straight retelling. Like there's a lot of people who do it very, very well. Like what's going to, you know, kind of stick mine out from the crowd while trying to find an agent. And so I was like, well, you know, Poe stuff doesn't get done. I mean, it does get done, but not like, you know, I don't really know of any Annabelle Lee ones. And I've always liked that poem. And I kept trying to write it in different ways and it just never could really, there's a reason it's a poem and not like a novella that Poe wrote. And so I kept trying to think of like ways I could like keep the essence of that, but pair it with something. And I started thinking about fairy tales, and because like so much of Poe is you know, these beautiful girls who die in terrible, terrible ways, and fairy tales are full of beautiful girls who, you know, live very happily ever after. And I was like, oh, obviously smush them together and it's going to be great. And so with that one, the 12 Dancing Princesses, in my head with the Annabelle Lee thing, I had been thinking she had a lot of sisters. And I was like, oh, well, here we go. We've got 12 sisters right here. Let's see how many we can make die in terrible ways. And so that was born.
How many can I kill off before the first
and it worked really well. 4 before the first book, before the first page of the book. But then there was a lot of weird crossovers in ways, like they talk about you know, the winged angels are terribly jealous of the narrator and Annabelle's love, and so they come and kill them. And I knew that the world that I wanted to have was going to have like Greek gods, but set in like kind of a pseudo Victorian England type thing. And so I was like, okay, well, I don't really want angels coming down and, you know, killing people. So I was like, oh, the Greek gods, we'll do that. And so then it just kind of all flowed naturally. And then when I started Small Favors, I knew I wanted to set it totally outside the world of Arcanius. Like I wanted to put it like in our world, just to separate the two. And I knew that I didn't really want to go Europe because I had just been bouncing around in like my pseudo Europe with House. And so I set it in America in like 1880s. In my head, it's in a very specific part of Colorado. And then my agent was like, maybe we don't go so specific on things. So I had references to the Donner Party and like Roanoke and like all these weird, terrible tragedies in American history that the villains were meant to have been a part of. And so we kind of fudged a little some of the details to make it more fantasy land. But in my head, it's the Donner Party. And so with that, it was just, I liked the creepiness of nature. Like there's not necessarily like an Edgar Allan Poe story that specifically spawned the Rumpelstiltskin mashup. But it was just kind of like tall tales of American, you know, folklore and mythology. When I went to try to make the Rumpelstiltskin characters, I knew I didn't want to do like imps because they felt very European. And so I started like looking up American cryptozoology, and I was like, for a hot second, it was going to be Bigfoot. And then I was like, no, we can't have Bigfoot as a love interest. That would be terrible. And then I thought, well, what if we do all these different things? So I ended up kind of doing a mashup of like the Mothman from Pennsylvania, and then the Dark Watchers in California, which were fascinating to find out about. They're these like dark, tall figures that stand on like Highway 1 along a certain stretch of it, and they just stare at things all day long. And they're supposed to be like the guardian and custodians of the land. And but the thing I found that was one of the things I thought that was so interesting though was John Steinbeck actually says that he saw them. And I thought, okay, well, I wanted to ground this in reality. And like, if John Steinbeck's telling me that they exist, you know, who am I going to argue with John Steinbeck? So, and so I really liked them. And I liked, when I was, you know, at 3 a.m. looking at, you know, the Mothman stuff in Pennsylvania, I went down one of the Wikipedia wormhole conspiracy things. And apparently Mothman has been like at every awful thing that ever happens in American history. So there's like obviously the bridge collapse in Pennsylvania. Apparently he was spotted on one of the towers during 9/11. I don't know. But someone on Wikipedia really thinks so. And so I was like, oh, this would be really cool. Like we've got the Dark Watchers watching things, and then the Mothman at terrible things in American history. And so I was like, haha, villain. And so that's kind of how that one came to be.
I'm pretty sure that like the first time I met you, maybe I'm making this up, I'm sure, but the first time I met you, you've known for a long time, like Mothman is like one of the scariest things in the world to me. But of course I've, you know, gone down a rabbit hole since then too. But I feel like you like subconsciously put that in your brain and you're like, okay, Han, here we go.
This is all for you.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it is truly to me just like the creepiest idea that like there's beings out there that would like watch and know, and you know, but anyway, that could be like
and could like just go to different parts in the country like right before something awful happens so they can watch it. Like I love that. And it's kind of like the, you know, the Rolling Stones song, and like there's so many good things that like creepy watching.
Yeah, creepy watching is definitely like my but also my favorite. Like I said, you know, I go down the rabbit hole because I find it fascinating, just also very scary. So okay, so what about your next one?
So the next one is the most convoluted mashup of things I think I've ever created. When I was pitching it to my agent, I said it was the Manchurian Candidate with like every Gothic trope you could possibly insert into anything. A little bit of the Sound of Silence, because now we're into lyrics. And then that really famous line from Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg, the Molly, you in danger girl. It's that as a story. And my agent was like, can you like write this in synopsis for her? It's like, yes, I'll write this down. And then for the longest time, I actually, like, the title for the book was # Molly, you in danger girl. And so when we pitched it to my editor, that's how we subbed it. And my agent was like, Erin does intend to change this title, I think, at some point. But we thought you could use a good laugh today, and so my editor loved that. So, but then I was mentally calling it that for so long. I was like, well, like can we keep that? Like it's not a contemporary, but I like # Molly. That's a good one.
I was gonna say, I feel like
but yeah, now we have a real title.
The version you sent me, I think it was like part the new title and then like / Molly, you in danger girl, I think is the one. Yeah. Which, so I also, as soon as you said that, that's the one which I haven't read yet because I haven't prepared. So
it's, well, and I need to send you a new one because it's changed. Oh boy, has it changed. I've got on my other side of my office right now. I finally had to like break out. Usually I do all of my stuff, I don't think I have any near me, in notebooks, because I handwrite most of my books. But this one I had to get out. Like, my husband bought oh gosh, it's gotta be 4 feet by like 2 feet whiteboard for his office, and then he decided he didn't like it, and I was like, well, I'll use this for something, so I brought it up to mine, and now I've got index cards all over with like each index card is its own chapter. And then when I did my last round of revisions, like everything that stayed the same is all in navy blue, and then all the red changes are stuff that I need to do. And so like there's so much red ink on this whiteboard right now, and I'm trying to get everything done by Monday. So hopefully this week I can send you the hopefully last version of it, but that's a lot.
I'll start mentally preparing. Okay. Okay, so do you want to we've got a couple questions here. I think I also need to look through the chat because I think some were going in there too, or we had also talked about, you can talk about what you're reading right now while I look through these, or.
Sure, yeah. So I started, since I haven't been able to read any of my like fun Gothic stuff while I've been reading this one, I started reading Hex by Thomas Old, I'm going to slaughter his last name, Old Hurwitz, something like that. He's fantastic. Oh my goodness. It's a contemporary horror. But it's based about a witch who died like 300 years ago. The town killed her after she was accused of witchcraft, and they like sewed her eyes and her mouth shut with thread. And she's still alive somehow after they killed her. I'm not entirely sure. I haven't gotten that far into the book yet, but she like walks around the town, even though she can't see anything. She just walks around doing witchy wacky things, but now it's contemporary life, and so there's like apps that track her throughout the town, and like they've got like a spot it type thing. It's for Gossip Girl, like, oh, the witch is in our spotted, Catherine's over here in our living room right now, someone come and get her. But she just like walks around, and like I didn't entirely know what the book was about when I got it. Like I was the cover's like wonderfully creepy, and people have been raving about it, so I saw it at a bookstore and I was like, oh, okay, I'll get this. And like the opening sentence it's something, and I didn't realize that she was dead when I was reading it, and so I was very confused for a few minutes. And then once I got like grasped, okay, we've got witchcraft and the 21st century going on at the same time, that it's fantastic and so creepy. And like I honestly, like, I'm so skeeved out, not necessarily even by the witch, but like the people's interactions with her. It's horrifying. I love it. It's so good. And then right now I'm also reading a bunch of nonfiction. I'm reading Lilydale, the true story of the town that talks to the dead. And it's this town in upstate New York where like everyone who lives there are psychics or mediums, or fortune, like tarot readers. And it's a thing. And there's a documentary on HBO that I'm going to watch eventually because it's fascinating. And then I'm also reading Ripped from the Headlines by Harold Schrecker. And it's all on like movies that were based on serial killers because I'm trying to research some stuff for maybe my first like tiptoe into contemporary, maybe. I'm not sure. I don't know how I'm going to deal with cell phones because it's a weird plot device. I have issues with cell phones and books. So we'll see how that goes. I'm thinking of studying it in like the 70s maybe because it's kind of contemporary, but
it's true.
Steve Jobs haven't ruined everything.
You can I have friends who write, you know, thrillers. I mean, you do too. And I've heard multiple times on how that's such a struggle now because it's like all you have to do is send a text.
like somebody, like SOS, the tailor's in the closet. Don't go in there.
Contemporary romance, whenever there's a misunderstanding, like it's so easy to just like text I'm sorry now and not even have to like, yeah. So I agree. You have to kind of like come up with creative ways of having people who are like either afraid of technology or maybe are just not
bad at charging their phone.
like super, you know, outdoorsy, whatever. I mean, my husband does not have social media, doesn't do anything like that. He has a phone, but that's it. And so I'm like, there are people like that out there, but not really in YA. So all right, let me look at some of our questions we have here. Kelly asked, what advice would you each give to somebody who is an aspiring author? I'm going to let you go first on that one because that's a hard question.
It is. My big thing, I think, is to like find another author who's kind of like at the same stage in life as you. And I remember like when Erin and I were doing one of the Twitter contests. And I remember seeing you use the Johnny Cat or the Walk the Line GIF in yours. And I was like, who is this Erin person who has my name? And she's using really good GIFs. And then I was like, wait, I really want to read this book. I hope like an agent picks it up because yay. But yeah, it's a weird process. Like I always assumed like, because, you know, you sit down to write a book by yourself and then, you know, you write a really bad query letter by yourself and you send it out and get like like that. It's this scary thing. And it's so not like, we've got this little kind of a tribe of writers who are all at about the same, you know, a lot of us, we all debuted at the same time and everything. And it's so much nicer going through the process of publication with somebody. And like, even after you get an agent and even after your book sells and all the ups and downs of going on sub and all of those things, there's so many things too that like, you can't talk about to like a lot of people, like just, you know, blast it on social media or whatever. And so to find somebody who you can, you know, slip into a Slack chat or whatever with, or give a phone call to, it just makes the whole process so much more enjoyable, like going through it with friends. And so I always just assumed like, oh, you write the book and you get an agent and then there's a book party. And so like, having somebody to like go through all the steps there's, you know, 50,000 steps between that and that. And so to have somebody like walk that path with you, it's very lovely.
Yeah. And to cheer for you for sure. I mean, just to have, you know, it can be social media can make it kind of lonely. So I think having, you know, like you said, like a group of people who are in the same position as you really helps to be able to go, okay, I would never want to complain about this, but I just need to be able to like be real with somebody. So I think that's great.
And especially too, like debut year is so weird. And like, there's so many things that like your editors, you know, they've got many books that are coming out at the same time. And so they don't necessarily have time to like walk you through every step of this. Or like when your agent comes and she's like, okay, here's, you know, 10,000 acronyms I don't understand. So like to be able to be like, Erin, what does this mean? Is this normal or they hate me? I don't know. It's nice to have somebody like who can explain things or like, oh wait, I did this, you know, 2 weeks ago. No, this is totally normal. It's very life-saving.
Yeah. Or to even have somebody who is like, I have no idea too. So we'll just both be together. I also think that one thing that I think a lot of new authors kind of get hung up on is you get like you had talked about, you had like 130 rejections, I think you had said. And I know I had multiple books, but I think I clocked in more than 300 rejections with my books before I sold You Be Mine and got an agent first and then sold You Be Mine. And one of my biggest things of advice would be like to not be so precious about your books. Like it's so easy to be like, this is, you know, I've put all of my life into this little book and I want to be able to sell it. And I'm going to, you know, this is my one shot and I want to be, you know, famous and whatever. And it's really easy to get worried about things like, oh no, that person has a book that sounds kind of similar to this, or that person just sold their book and, you know, I was going to write a book like that one day after I did this one, or, you know, I've gotten this rejection and they want me to rewrite something, but I can't rewrite it because I know exactly what this is supposed to be. And I think we tend to kind of get really precious about those early drafts of our stories. And we think like, kind of have like this vision of one way it's supposed to be. And like, 99% of the time it doesn't work out that way, and it's really hard to kind of let go of all those expectations and just be like, okay, there's professionals here, they might know a little bit more than me about this, like I can hear them out. It doesn't mean you should trash anything or get rid of your drafts or give up or anything like that, but just to be able to have that kind of sense of self and just know like, okay, I know what my story is supposed to be, I know what I meant to do, now I'm going to take this input and really give it some thought and think about it. And you know, like you said, have your group of friends that you can say, okay, do you agree with this? Do you think this? And have them be people who you can listen to and trust and that will be honest with you. I think that's really important because it is very easy. The first, I look at my old stories, the first ones that were rejected that I will never, ever talk about to anybody. And I think like they were right to reject that. I understand now, but at the time it was heartbreaking. And I think it's, you know, you have to be able to get to the place where you're like, okay, I'm going to write another book. I'm going to do another thing, you know, even if it's just while you're waiting, while they're considering your book, start something else and just keep going because, you know, otherwise you get very worried about like that one particular story. And it's not always just the one book, right? You know, I think we both have books that we wrote for ourselves, but probably not for anybody else, you know, at the end of the day. So you're freezing or I'm freezing, but I'm gonna go to the next question.
When you were talking about the rejections things, when you're talking about the rejections, I kept going back to that stupid article about J.K. Rowling and her 12 rejections. And so like, I got my first two, I think back to back on the same day. I'm like, oh great, I only have 10 more of these to go. Don't listen to that. That's absurd, 12 rejections. Like, oh my gosh, that's not like an overcoming, like that's not a story of perseverance at all. And I thought it was, and no. No, that's so quick.
And it's quoted so often. I mean, like so many people pull up that quote about the 12 rejections and we're just like that's the standard, and it is just not at all the standard. Yeah, for sure.
No. Oh my gosh, that's a Cinderella story. No.
Let's see. The next question I have here is from Lisa, and it says, "Hi, Erin. I loved reading House of Salt and Sorrows. Me too. Would you ever include a character from a previous book in one of your upcoming books? You said you wouldn't return to Acadia, but I mean, will you ever?"
I would love to eventually. There's so many different areas of the kingdom. I don't think I would ever do like a straight sequel because I feel like Annalee and Cassius are like happy in their little, you know, light keeper house land, and they're watching Netflix and, you know, taking care of the light, and they've got to do laundry and like all of that stuff. And I think their big adventure's over, which is good. But there's like, I loved part of the story that I love so much was getting to like go to all the different places for the balls, and like Bloom and Pelage and all these different places. And so I think I definitely like would like to visit other places in Arcania. That would be really fun. And as far as like I could see some of the characters, you know, wandering in maybe because, you know, it's that time period and region of land. But yeah, I think Annalee and Cassius they're pretty happy at their lighthouse, doing their thing. Or are they? I don't know. I had a very awful thought one day. I started writing out like a true sequel, and I was like, what if everything I said didn't happen? And then I sent it to my critique partner. She's like, no, don't write that. It's terrible. And I sent it to my agent just to be sure. And she's like, why would you hurt people like this? So no, that's not happening.
I refuse to even think of that narrative. No, absolutely not. I agree with
it. Was a very, very dark night.
That's the thing. I think I get that a lot too with like contemporary love stories, and people be like, I want a sequel, and I'm like, no, because then that means I have to break them up or something. I have to.
Yeah, no one wants to see like the happy domestic everything. Like doing laundry and like grocery shopping is boring. Like no one wants to read about that. But that's what makes up a love life. Like that's the goal is the Netflix and the laundry.
Right. Exactly. And no one wants to pay me to write the Netflix and laundry version of it. I mean,
no. Although they do have a really good queue. I'm sure they do.
Okay, so let's see. Hi, Erin and Erin Hahn. This is from Sarah. I've read You Be Mine, which I enjoyed. Thank you. And Erin Craig is the reason I read it. Double thank you. As she bought it for me and said, read it. I look forward to reading more. Thank you. That's awesome. Erin Craig, yay for you. Erin knows my penchant for not reading or watching scary or macabre stuff. I agree. She scarred me by recommending The Cabinet of Curiosities. That sounds awful.
It's so good.
I've made an exception for her. I've made it so far. Okay, so when did you actually start writing? Not necessarily long form. And although I actually like that you write creepy things, do you think you might write more that is like your recent short story?
Oh, I do find that wildly hilarious. So Erin, for people who don't know, Erin and I also have a book that we shared together with a bunch of other authors. We did an anthology called Together Apart, and it's all about meet cutes in the time of COVID. And I think that it's wildly funny to me when I get reviews from that and people are like, oh, you wrote the happiest story. I'm going to go read your other books now. And I'm like, okay. Have fun with that, and to also take a subject that is so awful and fraught with actual horrors as COVID, and to be like, oh, that was Erin's really happy cute story. Well, all of these awful things are actually happening in life. I could see maybe writing a happy romantic happy thing.
Yeah.
Without ghosts, maybe. I don't like committing to that, the no ghosts. I have an idea, like I for most people know about my ridiculous penchant for royal romances. I love a royal romance. And I would so love to write one because it would be really fun to research. But I don't know that I can do it without the scary stuff. That's a hard thing to commit to. And other people do it so very much better than I do. I think I would end up sticking like a really creepy corridor someplace, and the story would like derail really quickly.
Would you? So I have like a huge obsession with Anastasia, as do most people are.
Yes.
And I have thought many times, like I would love to do an Anastasia retelling, but I am not a scary person. But my friend Erin Craig is a scary person. And now that you're saying royalty, you could put some romance, you've got Rasputin, and very scary. I just want you to know right now that I will offer to read it for you. And also
I'm writing this down.
Part of the profit.
Yes.
I'm getting support.
Look at us.
Yeah, see, like, sometimes you get
I like this idea.
They're like, it's not for me, I'm passing it on. And like, just as it was like a lightning strike, like, this is for Erin.
I like that idea. I need a proposal soon. Maybe I will go down this wormhole. I like this. I'll be like, well, Erin Hahn told me to write it. I don't know.
I'm here to bounce off ideas, but I'm telling you, it is all for you.
I'm here to join the cheering section for sure.
Yeah.
This is the book that I want to.
Yeah, this is what we want from Erin Craig. Let's make it happen.
Excellent.
Well, thank y'all so much
Thank you.
Our audience. This has been awesome and a great way to hide from the heat. As anyone, most of us everywhere in the country have to do right now. All right. Well, it's been a great afternoon. We really appreciate it. And you can order any of the 5 books we talked about today at novelmemphis.com. Yes, we mail, we curbside pickup, we deliver all that jazz. So hit us up if you need one of these excellent books to read this summer. Thank y'all again.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.